Hey everybody, this is going to be a quick video on how to possibly approach doing a Spider-Man type of web sling. So the file I was working on, just to play this end result here, we've got this old-time version of Captain Sheridan kind of jumping in and shooting out a web, and maybe he's about to drag something over or he's about to zip out of there. But let's go through an approach for this that's relatively simple. It's actually inspired by the dynamic cloth wrapping thing we did the other day. Gave me the idea for this. So let's go back over to Maya. So essentially this is being controlled, and we'll go through the setup for this, but it's actually being controlled by this, which is really just a curve and two clusters. One cluster is connected into the hand here, and the other cluster, or the world cluster, is going to go off into space, and this is kind of what the web is going to be zipping along. Once we have both of these connected, basically your character would be able to swing along that. Once this is perfectly straight, that is, the character can swing along that or do whatever he might need to do. Now to actually generate the web, what we're going to do is, once we've got the timing in place for this initial very simple curve, which again is just consisting of 2 points, just 2 points is a linear curve. It's a matter of duplicating this out and creating a curve that has a little bit more fidelity to it, so a little bit more vertices, which is this guy right here. And he has about 16 to 20 vertices, and these are just simply hand animated, just to give it that cool organic kind of zipping that would, which you see in your typical Spider-Man animated cartoon or movie or whatnot. And then from there, we're just going to go through and connect this curve that has the multiple verts to the original curve, which just has 2 verts, through a wire deformer. And then once that's done, we're going to take this duplicate curve that has all of those verts, we're going to offset that. So here's an offset of that. So we have a very, very slim, very small offset between the 2 curves. And we're going to generate geometry from that as a loft and extrude it out. So then we end up having geometry for that. Let's see if I can... which is this guy right here. So it's very, very thin geometry. That could be as thick or thin as you want. This could even be randomized if you want kind of larger chunks or thinner chunks or whatnot. It's really going to be up to you in terms of how you approach that. So you can have like kind of randomized goopy bits and whatnot along the way. And essentially this is what gets rendered out though. Alright, so let's go through that setup on a simpler basis. So I have a clean version of Maya. So I'm just simply going to start by going to my front or side view, and I'm going to create a curve. So create CV curve tool, CV curve tool option box. And as I mentioned, we want to make sure we're using a linear curve. So linear curve. That is basically going to allow us to have a curve with only 2 points. And I'm going to snap 1 point here at origin, and then another point just a little bit further up. And hit enter so that the curve is created. And this gives us again a curve with just the 2 points. And this is going to allow us to easily kind of shoot this out or have a character swing along the bottom of it. So we do need to create some controls. Now, we are going to use clusters, and it's probably a good idea to actually have additional controls on top of those clusters. Now, for the for this, basically I was just animating the clusters, just for the wrist and the global cluster. But again, it's probably better to have that extra layer of functionality, so it's easy to select and animate with. So again, creating a control curve. So I'm going to create a sphere circle. So create NURB circle, and I'm just going to duplicate that and snap it to where the top is, which is probably about there, yeah. And I'll label these guys. So this is our original curve, and this is our, call this one the hand web CTL. Could be also called local, maybe, because it's going to be locally connected to the rig. And we've got our world web CTL. Alright, and then we're also going to create our constraints. So I'm going to turn on my vertices, and not constraints, sorry, our clusters. So deform, the deform menu. Cluster, so that's going to go to the first point down there, and then we're going to add another cluster to this point up here at the top here. So we've got the two clusters. Again, these clusters will control the curve position. And then these clusters are simply going to be, well, we should label them. So hand, I don't know what the cluster, I had to get kind of, alright, we'll go with that, and world, work. And then these are going to go to their corresponding controls. So the hand goes under the hand control, and the world goes under the world wide web control. Alright, so now we have our controls that will control the web. Alright, so I'm going to take these two controls, and maybe I should create a master control as well. Not to get overly confusing, but maybe that's probably a good idea. So NURB circle. And I'm just going to create a larger circle, and I'll call this master web CTL. And the two controls are going to go underneath that. Now, I just got to make sure that I do freeze transformations on those hand controls, so hopefully this doesn't mess up the clusters. I might not be able to do this, but let's find out. Okay, there we go. That's good. Alright, so don't forget, always freeze your trans. Same with on this guy. There we go. Our original curve, that's not getting parented into that, so make sure we keep that separate. But I might as well just organize this a little bit here. So just call this web group. Alright, so all of the construction curves, this is all going to get connected through procedurally, through construction history. So it's going to be very important that we don't group any of the construction curves, such as the original CRV, to any of the controls. Otherwise we'll get double transformations, double, triple, quadruple transformations, which would be bad, obviously. But for now, we're just going to have it by itself down here. So I'm going to take this master control, and essentially we want this in place. So before we actually build the web, just so that it works within our specific scene, we probably want to actually have it in our scene and animating at this level. Because the next steps work better if this is going to be in a neutral position on how it actually ends up being connected or positioned. So for example, if I'm going to, well, let's create an object that this web is going to shoot out of, like maybe a box here. Okay, connect that in there. And it's going to get shot up to here. Say something like that. Alright, so once I've got this in position, you know, I could even parent this into the box, or if I had a control, I could parent it into the control. Or I could constrain it to a control as well. But in this case, I'm going to parent it. So, whoops, but not the master control. Actually, I'll just constrain it. That way I can keep my networks together. Now, if I know I'm going to be moving this around within whatever this is connected to, which is a possibility, it's probably a good idea to make what are called connect groups on top of these controls. So I'm just going to group the world web control to itself and then the hand control to itself. And I'm just going to call this almost the exact same thing, but instead of control, it's a group. This gives us a little bit more flexibility in terms of repositioning things after we've started animating. Alright, so I'll connect this through a constraint. So let's pretend this is my object, or if I'm shooting out of a wrist, it might be the hand control or something of my character, perhaps. And so I'm going to select that cube, and I'm going to select the hand web group constraint parent. So now basically I haven't changed my hierarchy. This is all separate, so that's good. But now if I grab this box, it's going to move and swing with that, which is kind of what I want. That main web element, I'm just going to hide that for now. Just to hide that shape. Alright, so there we go, that does that. So let's say I want to shoot this thing out now. So I'm going to key this guy. So I know it's going to probably end there. Maybe this is on top of the ceiling or something. Let me just create another box this could dangle from. Alright, so it's going to hit there perhaps. And it's going to happen over relatively quick, maybe over like 5 to anywhere between 5 and 10 frames is probably good. So I'm going to start it closer here. There we are. And I'm just going to have it shoot up. Cool. Once that happens, maybe I could even animate this here. So key this box. And maybe this is going to spring up. And then come back down again. Maybe spring up just a little bit more. I'm not going to get too carried away with this. Back down again. Add another key or two. And just bring up my dope sheet. I'm just going to fix some of the curves. Alright, so let's see here. So dope sheet. Sorry, not the curves, just the overall timing. Let's see what we have first of all though. So it's going to shoot up. I'm just going to bounce around. This swing right here is just a little bit too fast, so I'm just gonna just like the bouncing ball though, don't forget every swing should lose a little bit of energy and whatnot, so it'll become less and less, and you know, everything goes back to that bouncing ball exercise. Cool. And you know, we could crush the curves, we could add in a little bit more kind of bounce and randomization into this. So this one might not come down quite as much. you know, that's probably a bit fast as well, but let me just change the curves first. So that would be translate Y mostly. So I'm going to go into the graph editor. And right, so right now we got these kind of roller coaster bits. So as it goes up, we might have a little bit more kind of hang time perhaps. So I'm going to go and free those tangent weights. And I'm also going to maybe break, maybe not break them just yet. So just give it a bit more hang time at the tops. And on the ends. And maybe on the other ends here. And I'm just going to go into the curves and just make them feel a little bit more natural here. You know what? It should actually be the opposite. So let's go back in here, and I'm just going to give this just a little bit more. It's going to be almost equal, actually, to be honest, because it's a bit of a it's like a bungee cord. So there is going to be tension where it kind of reaches its maximum extension before it snaps up, but it's also going to slow down with the gravity change. So it's going to be one of those kind of tricky things until we get into the swing. So let's see how this works. Yeah, it's still not quite working. Alright, let's go back in here. Let's just spline it up. Just a bit fast. Alright, so just going to go in. So I'm going to give this a bit more time. Need some more hang time in both directions. Let's see. I don't want to make this the focus though, so let's see how far we get with this, and if it just doesn't work, we'll just go on to the next thing. I hear footsteps upstairs, so if I get interrupted, I might have to just pause it briefly. I think I'm going to have to pause just right now. Just 1 second. Alright, I'm back. I simplified it. Just to keep things going, I didn't want this to be the focus. So basically I was going to shoot up and then just kind of hang up and just have a little bit of a recovery. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is find a midpoint for that. So probably around here. I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to duplicate it. And we're going to call this one, with the first one is the original, this is more the complex curve. And this complex curve, what I'm going to do just temporarily is I'm just going to move it over, and I'm going to, and not over a lot, just a little tiny bit, and I'm going to go into the curve menu, so curves, and at the bottom we've got rebuild. So I'm going to go in and rebuild this. So I want to make sure it's cubic, that way I get a nice kind of spliny looking result. Number of spans, I went 16 with the test I did earlier. This time I'm going to go maybe less, so maybe like 8. And apply. So now basically if I were to select this curve, you can see I've got way more than on this side. So this side, the original has only 2. And this one has 8 spans, which gives me about 9 CVs approximately. Alright, so now I'm going to connect the two. So this is why I move them apart slightly, because it does work better doing this in the viewport. So I'm going to go down to the wire, and I'm going to select the one that's being controlled, or the complex version first, hit enter, and then I'm going to select the original one, and then hit enter. And then you've got the connection with the wire tool. So basically whatever I do now with this, the other one is going to do. Now you can see as I'm doing this, it's not quite following 100% with the original. So what I need to do is I need to go into that wire input node. So this is under the complex curve. There's the wire one. I just want to increase this drop-off distance to something a bit higher, like maybe 50, 100, something large. So now whatever I do with this curve, the other one's going to do exactly the same as well. So I can, at this point, I can move this back to 0, and that should just directly overline the original one. And I'm going to animate at this point before creating my geometry, just because it's going to be much faster before we offset and extrude and do all those things. So I'm going to go into the, I'm going to hide the original curve because we don't want to animate that by accident. And I'm going to go into the complex curve, and I'm going to key it. I'm going to key it when it's perfectly straight. So it's going to be perfectly straight probably in the beginning, and it's going to be completely straight at some point at the end as well, probably around here. And then in between here, this is where the cool stuff happens, where you get that cool Spider-Man-esque thing going on. So I'm just going to create just maybe a slight soft mod tool. Now you can go a little bit larger with the soft mod, just make sure the root doesn't come off of where it is there. And I'll do the same thing up here. Now, right now, this is, you know, very linear. It doesn't have to be linear. We could break this shape up just a little bit and give it some dimension. And then as it's going up, it's a good idea to undulate that curve. So now this side might come out just a little bit more this way, this side might come out just a little bit more this way. And that's going to give it that cool organic feel, you know, that web shooter feel. And then as it comes up and back down again, you know, it probably will remain relatively straight, but maybe there'd be a little bit of slack as well. So what I'm going to do is ignore my stock details. I don't own Bombardier anymore, but still get that. Alright, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is key it here maybe. Key it here. Just where there might be just a little bit of slack. And I'm just going to add in just a smidge. Maybe not. Undo. It's maybe looking better just as a bit of a very kind of straight spring, perhaps. Let me do this. Keep it here. I'm just going to give it just a little bit of slack. You can make it as organic as you want, right? So maybe I'll just lessen that just a smidge. Maybe just make it a little bit more random. through. That looks better. Alright, maybe it doesn't need to go quite as much on that last little ripple, but I'm going to have to step away in a second again just for a phone call, but let me just in a bit. Okay, let's see if I can get this last little bit done in 5 minutes, because I do have a phone call, unfortunately, coming up, and I'll probably be interrupted in a second. So next thing I'm going to do is offset this curve. So in my curves menu, we're going to go down to offset, offset curve, and we just want to offset it by just a very, very small amount. So let's just offset that, and let's see what that is. Maybe that's okay. We could always change the distance though if we want it less or more. And then I'm going to take those two curves, and I'm going to generate a surface from that. Oh yeah, that's pretty big. So let me see. I'm going to go 0.1. Alright, that's a bit better. Take those two curves, I'm going to generate a surface. So under the surfaces menu, we're going to loft, and I want to loft it as a polygon. So I'm going to set it to quads, general, and apply. And that's going to give me something that isn't going to look very good. I do need to add some divisions, and it's just a matter of figuring out which direction that is in U. So I'm going to add in maybe 100 divisions in U. Well, not 1,000, that's way too much. 100. And let's see, number of V, just go down to 1. And then I'm going to extrude this out. So I'm going to take this, extrude it out with the extrude. There we go. So now we should have this circular shape if I smooth it by just hitting 3 on the keyboard. It's a nice circular tube. And now we've got this cool, that's cool. Now if I want, maybe that's a little bit too thin, just so we can see it a little bit better, although, you know, this is spider web, so it wouldn't be too thick, right? But I'm going to go in and maybe just play with the extrusion amount just a little bit more, just so we can see it a little bit better here. I think I might have, if you start getting stuff like this where it looks like it's messing up, just save it and reopen, because I didn't really do that. Let me undo. Cool. That's looking cool. And that's basically it. We're done. Well, one last thing. We just want to key the visibility on this stuff. So this is all the development stuff, or the stuff that you don't want moved. So what I would do is I would just call do, oops, not all of that though, because I don't have the cube. Let's see. There's the offset, there's the loft. These are all the original things. We don't want the geometry of the model. So I'm going to group that together. Call it do not touch. Put that under the group. And this group we can just key the visibility on. So right here is where we want it visible. So I'm just going to key visibility, and then where it's off, where it hasn't shot out yet, we just want it off. There we go. Cool, and it's really just that easy. So again, that's going to give us this cool kind of Spider-Man type of effect. Alright, so I'm going to stop the video there, and I hope this was useful.